All right, so this question from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, for submitting this to our site. I've been running a PPC campaign for over a month. Okay, I bid high enough to show up top of search results and was averaging about 1,000 impressions per day. Yesterday, out of nowhere, my listing stopped showing up for PPC. My listing still shows up organically, but not in the paid placements. And I've tried raising the bids to ensure that I'm not just being outbid. This is not the problem, as I've tested the bid at ridiculous high levels just to rule out that possibility. So one of the things that we see periodically is that Amazon will go through. Now, the clarification that I usually put on this is, have your ads dropped in impressions? In other words, you went from 1,000 impressions per day down to 200, right? A significant drop. That is usually some kind of change in relevance. If it went from 1,000 to 0, that's a penalty. In other words, your ads are being blocked from showing because of a violation of some policy that Amazon has. Usually, the most common thing that we see on that is a violation of content. In other words, you've got some word in your product listing, the title, the bullet points, the description, the back-end search terms, the images that may be preventing, or that Amazon may have picked up, maybe through an automated rule, and assumed that it was a violation. In other words, it was a term that was related to a prohibited product or a prohibited way of advertising. Most common things are things like weight loss. Anything that has kind of religious connotation will often trigger those. This actually varies between ad types. So sponsor product is probably the most flexible on this. Sponsor brand, usually very critical on this. So they've got a tighter scrutiny in sponsor brand ads and sponsor display ads, especially if you're using retargeting, than you would on a sponsored product ad. But usually it is a content violation. You've got some word in there. You use something like supplement or FDA or boost or something that is expressing more of an opinion than a fact about your product. And of course, some things that we've seen over the last few months, of course, is where the main image of your product listing is not compliant. And therefore, Amazon, they don't tell you. They simply just stop running ads for you. And you're left scratching your head like, what am I doing wrong? There's no error. There's no brand performance or account health error or anything that I'm seeing. And if you write into seller support, they'll tell you all kinds of crazy things because they don't have that great a training there. But the first and foremost is that if it went from 1,000 to 0, you probably are being blocked from running ads. Starting a new campaign is unlikely to resolve that issue. You can certainly test it, but it's unlikely to do anything until you fix the problem and you request for a re-review by seller support to reactivate your ads based after you've made the change. So don't just assume that, I removed that word and so my ads suddenly started showing. Nope, afraid not. They're going to have to manually turn it back on again after they review it. So let's see here. So the other thing probably on this one is that if it's simply just reduced, when I was referring to 1,000 down to say 200 impressions, related to relevance, first and foremost, certainly make sure that your product hasn't been shifted over to a different subcategory, a different browse node, if you will. Make sure that obviously you've tested higher budgets, but check things like your click-through rate and your conversion rate of your campaign. If those are fairly low, then Amazon has simply abandoned your campaign as being competitive. One of the things you may try doing if you're using some kind of a top of search adjustment strategy is increase your default budget and reduce your top of search placement percentage. Test that so that you're coming in with you're not getting filtered out before you even reach the starting line. You're not getting filtered out because your starting budget or your starting bid is not competitive. Third, if it is related to a specific keyword, then try different match types. If it simply just dropped in impressions, try different match types to see maybe you've got some additional competition that has come in. Maybe Amazon has gotten more restrictive about certain keyword match types. So those are some things you can test. Hopefully that helps, and hopefully that solves the issue. If not, make sure that you ping me back and give me a little bit more information about the situation.